Hello, I'm Makayla Angshed, and welcome to People in Perspective. Joining me today is my mom, Jennifer Angshed, here to talk about her job as an essential worker. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Okay, show me what you have brought.
Okay, I brought a little sample. I meet with patients daily who want to be tested for the coronavirus. A lot of people are apprehensive and nervous about it, so I try and talk them through it and tell them exactly what they're going to feel. So we do wear a face mask and a shield. I forgot to bring one, but we have booties that we can put on our shoes, a gown, a bonnet or bouffant, and some gloves. So when I'm obtaining the sample, I will show the patient what it looks like, that it's a little skinny Q-tip. You can even touch the tip of it.
Wow, yeah.
It's super flexible, and it's a really tiny Q-tip. So you have little hairs in your nose, and you'll feel a little tickle, I tell them, and then it's a dry Q-tip. It has a little burn, and then it feels most familiar as like if you were a kid jumping in a pool and you had water in your nose, or that pressure you feel. And I have to do both nostrils. So we just go in one side, we go in, swirl, and come out. So I went in about this far, but as you can tell, it's not totally in. I mean, it's a significant amount going in. I don't know if you saw that. And then I let the patient recover. Sometimes it'll bring a tear to your eye because it's an irritant. And then I go down the opposite side and do the same thing again.
Yeah, and the interesting part is people think that you're touching the brain, but you're more touching the throat.
Absolutely. This is called a naso, N-A-S-O, pharyngeal swab.
Wow, very interesting. So what is your typical day like if someone were to come in for like a COVID test?
So people come in with a lot of different symptoms, and everybody wants to know, like, how do you differentiate between the flu and COVID? So we do have some criteria that our patients need to meet, and the benefit of having the patient meet this criteria is so that we get an accurate test. We have many patients that come in and say, I don't have any symptoms, I was just in contact with somebody and I'm really scared and I need a test. I'm sorry, we don't perform that right now because you may not have enough of the virus to be detected. So we wait for, the criteria has changed since I've been doing this since March. The current criteria in my clinic is you have to have symptoms for 3 or more days, and your symptoms need to be 3 or more symptoms, meaning a cough, runny nose, body aches, fever sometimes. You don't always have to have a fever. There's several more.
Yeah, so can you elaborate more on like how long have you been doing this for?
So I have actually been obtaining this type of sample for many years. I used to work in the pediatric unit in the hospital, and there's a virus that children get called RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, and it could be very deadly for them. And we would have to use the same exact swab, and I forgot to show you the swab. Once I obtain the sample, I put it in this medium, and then we transport it to the lab. The medium keeps the sample from drying out and makes it viable for the lab to get the right test done accurately.
Wow, yeah.
So I've been doing it for many years, yeah.
Interesting, yeah. And also, I know since you're my mom, you've told me about like more of the stress, like right when COVID was becoming more of, for lack of better terms, popular term. So like, how long have you been doing this?
So for strictly COVID testing?
Yeah.
So I remember, and I think it tied in with your school. Your last day of school was probably March 13th. So when I was off that weekend. March 16th was a Monday. We flipped from being an immediate care. An immediate care clinic is where a patient can go and see a doctor immediately and not have to wait for their doctor. And we do things like chest x-rays, maybe splint a broken arm or a fracture, respiratory things. Anyways, so back in March, we flipped over to seeing COVID patients only. The rules have changed from daily, hourly, weekly. It has slowed down now, but we were doing so many different varieties of tests in the beginning, and the precautions, and I feel like the community has the medical community has calmed down a little bit, and we have the proper PPE, which I showed you. And I am proud to say that nobody in my clinic, since we've been doing this since March, has missed a day of work due to being infected with COVID.
It's impressive.
I'm very proud of us.
Yeah.
That means we're cleaning very well, we're taking it seriously, we're keeping not only ourselves safe, but all our patients that come in, we're keeping them safe as well.
Yeah, have you ever been tested?
No, I have not been tested because I haven't met criteria. So I haven't had any of those symptoms or, for that many days either.
Wow.
And I will say I have been in contact with people who are positive daily because I do the callbacks and I call them back and I tell them about their results and how to handle their quarantine and what symptoms to look for when it's necessary for them to go to the emergency room.
Yeah. What's been your personal experience with this? Just stress and just being safe.
Stress. Sometimes we don't factor in the mental aspect of it, even though it's all physical. A virus is usually physical. The mental aspect of it is people come in and say, oh my gosh, I think I have it, and then am I going to give it to somebody else? But for me personally, I'm constantly checking in with myself, like, okay, how am I feeling now? Oh, I have a headache. Is that COVID? No, it's not COVID. Maybe I didn't drink enough because I'm seeing so many patients. I haven't had a chance to take care of myself. So I think this disease, or virus, is teaching all of us to stop running around and burning the candle at both ends. I think it's telling us to listen to our body more and treat yourself. And the treatment currently, as you know, if you're positive for the COVID or you're negative, the treatment's the same. There's no cure for being positive, and the only prevention to stay free of COVID is social distancing and hand washing. So at any point, like any other virus, treat the symptoms. If you're having a headache, body ache, or fevers, take some Tylenol. Sometimes when you get a fever, that dehydrates your body, so make sure you're staying hydrated. If you're a person that drinks caffeinated items like coffee, tea, or pop, you can still drink those, but make sure you're drinking extra water to flush out that germ. Get lots of sleep, hand washing, and I think that's about it. That's the only treatment plan right now.
Yeah. How many patients do you see on day to day, or has it been changing since March?
It has been changing since March. We initially were scheduling patients, so we knew exactly how many patients we were going to see every day, but now we flip back to our old rules. Being in immediate care means walk in, seen in order, first come, first serve. We see from 20 to 50 patients a day. It depends.
Wow, very, very interesting. Yeah, and can you elaborate more on tips, if someone were to come into the office asking for a test, what could they expect? Because some might be nervous. Just elaborate more.
I think nerves is brought on by people not knowing what to expect. So I feel like communication is huge. So I try and find what that fear is. Right away, commonly is oh my gosh, is this going to hurt? Are you going to touch my brain? Well, clearly I demonstrated we're not touching your brain, but it does bring a tear to your eye. It is not the most comfortable test, but I will tell you there's people that keep coming in frequently to have this test done. Some of them are negative, 5 times in a row they're negative, but they still keep coming in, so it can't be that bad.
Yeah, well, I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you so much for joining me on this edition of RBTV. Thank you, Mom, for coming. It's been very nice to see how and what you've been doing. And I'm Makayla Angshed, and this has been People in Perspective.